So dear students, in this debate on subject-verb agreement, you need to review that what I gave you. I assure you, having gone through that frequently and sort of gaining confidence that you can handle them, any question pertaining to this area, you would have no difficulty whatsoever in tackling that question. I would give you an exhaustive study on the types of errors that occur on this area. Moving on. See, your uncountable nouns they take always a singular verb. What are the uncountable nouns? Such as, let's say, information, knowledge, advice, evidence, research, let's say news, progress, work. Though there is a structure called works, but that's a separate thing. We would learn that afterwards. And then you have expressions such as money, traffic, equipment, furniture, luggage, etc. My point is that these uncountable nouns, since they are non-count, you cannot put them in plural form. And saying informations would be an error. Spot that as an error wherever he uses that kind of expression. Or advices, there's no such expression in English language. Again, evidences, you cannot have its plural form because it's an uncount noun. And in its singular capacity, you have to use it. Thereby, you require singular verb with that. When I say, let's say, your advice has been very helpful, or just helpful. What am I doing? I'm using this singular verb with this non-count noun. It has to be done with all such nouns, like traffic is increasing, furniture is costly. You cannot put it into plural form. Furnitures are bought by, wrong. You cannot have plural of that structure. Luggages were transported by the porters, cannot be the case. The luggage was transported. So every time, on two accounts, you have to be watchful. One, that these non-count nouns should not be put into plural form. Two, the verb used with them should always be singular. However, you can always add some quantifiers to them, some determiners like no information was given, or you may say some contents of the information were faulty. So such expressions may occur before them. And when we say of information, now the subject remains the contents thing. Some contents, let's say some articles of furniture were damaged. Why are we using were now? Because the subject is some articles, not furniture anymore. But when this be the subject, your verb has to be singular minded. Moving to the next category, you may have irregular plurals. Obviously with them you would use plural verb. What are irregular plurals? Like one is simple adding s and getting plural form, but there are irregular, like irregular verbs, irregular nouns that are plural. And to give you some example, let's say people, child say children, From man you have men, woman thereby, and foot, say, let's say feet, tooth and teeth. You have irregular plural sheep, mice, criteria, formulae. How is it spelled? L-A-E, probably, formulae. Then you have memoranda, from memorandum. We are calling them irregular plurals. Once we know that they are plurals, we need to know that we have to use plural verb to make verb agree with the subject. There could be, let's say, this is important, hypothesis, because the only difference is this thing, hypothesis. One is with IS and the other is with ES. On the same pattern, analysis. Some pronounce it as analyses. Then you have basis. You have crisis. One is with I, that is singular. With E, it is plural. So every time you have an irregular verb, you should remember that the right form of verb with that subject is plural form. So any of these nouns, when made a subject, we would use plural, like verb. Crises, or facing the entire world. We may make another sentence. Let's say criteria. These criteria fulfill our requirement. What are we doing? Like, we are using this verb, treating this irregular plural as plural subject, and using plural structure like verb without SRES. This could be with these such words: men are busy, women are noble. It's easy, not a trouble. The trouble is here in these structures, like when I say, for example, modern day world is facing many crises. Crises are faced by modern day world. So when it is crisis, this crisis. When it is crises, it is these crises. You have to be watchful on these irregular plurals. However, there is like at times modern usage permits singular use as well. But you stick to the grammar, you stick to the rules which state that bacteria is plural and bacterium is singular. So bacteria are common and bacterium is found. Or data again is like of that category. We would say its singular is datum and its plural is data. So these data are relevant. This datum is found. So you have to use these irregular verbs as per plural subjects and thereby make the verb agree with that plural content. We move on. There are certain structures that look singular. Not many, but some may confuse you. But they are actually plural. So they use plural verb. To give you an example, let's say cattle. A apparently without SCS. Then you have poultry, such words as arms, riches, though it has S here, but still it sounds like singular subject, riches. You need to use plural verb with them. Cattle are grazing. Alms are given to the needy. Riches are needed. So we are implying plural verb with apparently singular looking notions. Since they are actually plural subjects, we are treating it as plural then. An important area actually where your examiner is more likely to test you. He uses an adjective, and with that an article. You know, whenever you put an article, definite article plus an adjective, you don't require the noun anymore, because this itself serves as noun or pronoun. It's essentially noun. I say the poor. Poor otherwise is adjective, but with this definite article it becomes a noun. The rich, the needy, for that matter any adjective, the bold, etc. Remember, whenever such combined form, definite article plus adjective, are implied, such combined forms are implied as subject, these are plural subjects. And your verb thereby has to be plural verb. Let's say, to give you an example, the poor are in terrible shape. Plural verb. Why? Because it's adjective plus definite article. So our rule says with such structures you necessarily require plural verb. This definite article does wonders at times with certain things. This is becoming as a plural subject, but when you use definite article with any animal kingdom, from animal kingdom, any singular noun, let's say the dog. No, you have used this definite article with singular noun and making it a subject. This remains singular. The dog is a faithful animal. Faithful or ferocious, whatever. The point is, your verb is singular. Why? Because from animal kingdom, singular entity, with this definite article, it represents the whole class. And as a class, it's a collective noun. And with that structure, you require singular verb. And thereby you are actually implying all dogs. It's not some specific kind. It's like dogs have this in their nature. Now, many times I have seen on many papers expressions that misuse this notion to assess your understanding on that. For example, a typical sentence that is frequently found on tests is, an elephant is a gigantic creature. You have to spot the error. Do it, please, because you know the rule. The rule says with singular noun, to represent the class, you require definite article, the, not an. This an elephant actually means one elephant. And when you are talking in terms of general features, like you are representing the class thereby, the concept involved is that all elephants are gigantic. Because this statement simply means one is gigantic, rest are very slim, smart. That's not the case. So you are misusing this concept. Instead, the right form requires the elephant is a gigantic. Verb is okay. It is agreeing with the subject, because from animal kingdom with definite article, when you have a subject to represent a class, it is always singular and your verb remains singular. But you cannot use any other article. Even without this elephant, that would be wrong. So necessarily you need to remember, coming back to this, with adjective it is a plural. Definite article plus adjective, it is a plural subject. Definite article and noun from animal kingdom, it is singular subject. The horse runs fast. The cow gives milk. So every time we are representing the entire species and representing the class actually, but we are using singular verb. With adjective combination, definite article plus adjective, we were using plural verb. So these are the rules you need to retain in your mind, that seeing this structure, singular, seeing this structure, the poor, the rich are nasty, maybe, not always, depends. Then again, any adjective you can use with definite article by just simply remembering plural verb. Any animal kingdom naming word with definite article, just remember singular verb. And remember, it would represent obviously the entire class. With human beings, normally we use without article singular noun. Man is mortal, you have heard quite often. So without, when you say the man, this actually means some specific person. Woman, how do you write woman? Woman is, let's say, considered meek by Shakespeare. Let me not take the blame. Considered weak. So when we say the woman, that means some specially known individual to that person you are specifying. And that's not the case. We are generally talking. When you talk in general about human beings, you use without article. Though in modern usage, again, you have this article and plus human beings. But grammar demands this. So you stick to it. And if your examiner asks, his perspective is to assess your understanding on this domain. If you have that in mind, you would have no trouble. So we have seen this rule that definite article, how it has to be implied with certain subjects. Quick review, uncountable nouns, no plural. You cannot say informations, you cannot say advices, you can say pieces of advice, you can say contents of information. Irregular plurals, like criteria, you need to know first that what is its structure. Criterion is singular, criteria is plural. Formula, formulae. So you have to understand both singular and plural, and you have to remember this being irregular plural, it requires a plural verb. And nouns that appear singular but are actually plural, I have mentioned some. Then I talked about definite article with adjective used as a subject to be treated as plural subject, and thereby the verb had to be plural. When, however, from animal kingdom you have a naming word with definite article, that again represents the entire class, in a way plural concept, but collective noun. So the verb has to be singular. With human beings, it's a bit different, like without article. You cannot use the man. You have to say man is mortal or man is ambitious by nature. We have certain other areas that I would like to move on to. Like there could be some nouns that look plural, but they are actually singular. And therefore, why singular? Because the concept wise they are singular. Singular concept they involve, and then again they require singular verb thereby. To give you some examples of that kind, let's say they pertain to some studies or maybe games or activities. These nouns, they look plural. Like if I say mathematics, yeah, maths. If I say statistics, or I say economics, or physics, etc. Apparently plural with S. But despite looking plural, they are actually singular concepts when they pertain to studies. Remember, I would give you a separate rule on that just in a minute or two. When you have games or activities, say billiards, or you could have like activities or diseases, I had to write. That would be written separately. Let me see. So when you have games and activities like billiards, aerobics, say athletics, or cards, etc., you apparently have plural subjects, but your verb has to be singular. Why? Because billiards is liked by these boys. Let's say aerobics is becoming popular in schools. However, these concepts, as I told, they appear plural. Normally singular. Maths is easy. Statistics is boring maybe. Economics is interesting. So as subjects, they are singular. However, these subjects, when they involve a secondary notion, like not in terms of academic subject, instead they have some other things to state, like the sentence if I make, the statistics are against his innocence. Now, I'm not using this reference of the subject in terms of a subject. I'm talking in terms of the calculations involved, the evidence available. So statistics are, now you can't say the statistics is against his innocence. Same way, the economics of this country are going down the drains maybe. Or let's say politics. I gave you this in the intro. Normally politics is an interesting subject. Like politics, when it is discussed with reference to individuals' activities or maneuvering, then it becomes a plural subject. Let's say politics of orthogonal are fascinating. So now you are talking about his maneuvers, his different intricate plans. So the same word doesn't refer to the subject itself. It is not referring to the studies anymore. When it refers to studies, it is singular. When it refers to the secondary concept involved, then it becomes a plural. Hopefully you have understood this. There are more concepts that you need to learn. Like we are getting into the detail of these things so that there remains no area which is not known to you. Next concept that I would like to teach you is pertaining to, again, let's say countries with plural names. like you have the United Nations, or not nations, the United States. The United States or the Netherlands. They look plural, or the name itself is plural, but it refers to a single entity. So you require singular verb. The United States is posing threats to China. The Netherlands is strong in farming industry. Not really tough. You understand that the concept is singular, though it sounds plural. Obviously it requires singular verb. I think you know it now. Then you have certain illnesses that require singular verb. These illnesses appear plural, but you always use a singular verb with them. What are they? Like measles, maybe, diabetes, etc. Whenever you use the verb with that, like the diabetes is a common problem. So we are using singular verb as per rule. They appear plural, but since they again deal with the singular concept, we use singular verb with that. You are aware of it now. Measurements. This at times troubles students. Please pay attention. Measurements, once you understand the rule, it would be very easy for you to handle. Let's say we are talking about $50. They look plural. Again, let's say we refer to some 50 kilometers. By virtue of these numerals, you have plural noun here. But when you are referring to measurements, let's make a rule. They appear plural, but they take singular verb. So if I make a sentence, 50 kilometers is a long way to cycle. You are basically referring to the distance measurement. $50 is not a big amount. So whenever any measurement is involved in terms of its denomination, you may feel like that being a plural subject, but it is not. It is actually to be treated as singular. So we would later on in different tests see your these skills. Be sure that you can immediately identify the problem and you know what the rule demands there. After this, you need to see titles. Titles of books, magazines, newspapers. They may appear plural. If plural, use singular verb. That's the rule. Like talk about some titles. The Times, the News. We are talking about the newspaper itself. Could be, let's say, some movie, The Three Idiots. So dear students, when you are using titles of books, magazines, newspapers, movies, for that matter even names of individuals that sound plural, like you have kids, remember it's talking about a single entity. Therefore, despite their appearance a plural kind, you need singular verb, and you can use any like the Three Idiots or the Muppets. The Three Idiots is a good movie. No, not movie, just movies, just movie. See why? Because apparently this is obviously by virtue of three, the noun goes into plural form. But since we understand this to be a title, and you would be given that kind of title which you are already familiar with, it is not to test your general knowledge, it is to test your understanding that how titles are to be treated with respect to subject verb agreement. So you would have no trouble handling this area. We move to the next point then. When you have, say, questions. Questions such as who or what. Remember, not used as interrogative adjective, but used as interrogative pronoun. You always use with who or what as interrogative pronoun. Singular verb. Like, even if the answer is in plural, who is going to Karachi? See, after this we have verb, so that means interrogative pronoun. Who is going to Karachi? The answer is we are going to Karachi. So irrespective of the answer being in plural version, the question has to be in singular. What is cooking in the kitchen? Vegetables are cooking in the kitchen. So you don't have to bother about the entity there, because say, what is making this noise? Obviously there is no choice provided to you to make this verb plural. Your question has to remain in this singular form. What is making the answer could be plural. Kids of the neighbors are making the noise. Should I write this sentence? Kids are making the noise. So you don't have to think beforehand as to what is the subject in terms of its answer. You simply have to work out on who and what. When there is no other guarantee as to why it should be in plural, you need to use singular verb. That's one area that troubles some. There are indefinite pronouns. You know what they are. Remember, indefinite pronouns take singular verb. What are indefinite pronouns? Let's write some. No one. To write some more, let's say nobody. Nothing. Someone. Somebody. Something. Everyone. everybody, everything, anyone, anybody, anything. These indefinite pronouns, the rule suggests the use of verb should be singular. Like if we say everybody is going, though we involve more than one individual here, but the verb requires everybody, singular structure, is invited, let's say. Now there is another problem. At times these indefinite pronouns need some reference in terms of some pronouns. Since you don't decipher the exact gender, you always write for proper structure, though in English language they have two options here, but we would stick to the one which is grammatically strong. That is, if we use any of these indefinite pronouns, everybody, let's say we use a relative clause, who is invited, has his or her invitation card. So see, referring to everybody, verb is singular. Why? Because who requires preceding noun to be the subject, that is singular. Everybody is invited. Everybody who is invited has, again everybody has. Now referring to everybody in terms of pronouns, his or her, you use both of them because you don't know whether that person who is being invited is male or female. So preferable grammatical usage demands that you use his or her. However, English people use their as well. Everybody who is invited has their invitation cards, then noun would go into plural form. But my suggestion is stick to this. However, this is not wrong either. Especially it becomes relevant when you have to make a tag question. There you have no other option. Supposedly we say, let's say everyone was present. Tag question is like repeating the auxiliary. When we come to this, we say, now we can't say wasn't he or she. Instead we say weren't they. That's how you make this structure. So your examiner may write here wasn't he or she. That is no way acceptable, because in tag questions you require always this they structure, that is to refer to indefinite pronouns.